Public Relations. Edward L. Bernays. 1945. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 2. Public Relations in Action. 15. Typical Action Blueprint for Public Relations Activity. This chapter presents an action blueprint as we might draw it up for a specific client for the purpose of solving specific public relations problems for purposes of illustration, a banking institution. Recommendations for a comprehensive, coordinated public relations program for the no-name state bank. To maintain and develop goodwill. To maintain and increase deposits and loans. To maintain and develop branch banking. To build up insurance values against attack. Introduction. The plan submitted herewith is a program for public relations activities of the no-name state bank. A bank offers the public the intangibles of credit, service, and integrity. A bank's standing with the public depends, to be sure, on the extent of its resources. That is a tangible factor. But it depends in no small measure on intangibles as well upon the public's attitude toward the bank's integrity and character. A bank's standing with the public depends on the attitudes and actions of its personnel, and on the attitudes and actions of others toward the bank. Years ago, a bank's status depended upon the personal relationship between the officers of the bank on the one hand, and the stockholders, depositors, and borrowers on the other. This situation does not exist today. An individual bank like the no-name state bank has many branches. The relationship between the bank and the public therefore depends upon the attitudes and actions of the bank as they are reflected to the public with which the bank deals. The relationship between the bank and the public depends on the actualities of this relationship. It also depends on how these actualities are reflected from bank to public. Unless the bank tries to achieve a coordinated, integrated, technically efficient approach to productive action and interaction between itself and the public, there is waste effort. This lessens the possibility of achieving the bank's objectives. If the no-name state bank is to maintain and develop itself in the highly competitive banking field, it must make sure that its actions and attitudes reflect public desire and public demand. Its thinking must reflect the public interest. Its actions must correspond with this basic approach at every point at which it impinges on the public. The public relations plan outlined here takes these realities into account. It attempts to define the problem, to set up machinery to cope with it, and to develop methods based on sound practices and principles that have already proved their value in banking and other fields. Surveys as a prerequisite to the establishment of policies, strategies, planning, and activities. To meet the objectives through the formulation of a sound public relations policy, it is recommended that outside counsel on public relations be authorized immediately to undertake for the no-name state bank 3 surveys which can be completed in a short period of time. 1. A survey to find out the sociological pattern of the city in which the main branch of the no-name state bank is located, groups that make up the population of that city, their adjustment or non-adjustment to each other and to the no-name state bank. After this survey is completed, an analysis should be made of the motives that guide the groups of the city population, the media of communication that bring facts and ideas to them, and the particular leaders, symbols, and motives that affect the attitudes of these groups. Such a survey is vitally important, for it will indicate basic underlying strategies and plans. 2. A similar survey should be made of the state in which the bank is located. This survey should be along broader lines. Particular effort should be made to evaluate depositor attitudes toward the bank, political alignments, industrial and agricultural alignments, and other group attitudes that may be helpful in designing the broad pattern of conduct for the bank to follow in order to achieve its goals. 3. A third survey should attempt to evaluate bank executives' attitudes and actions toward the public in relation to standards set up by the bank, and to determine what public attitudes and actions are toward the bank in terms of the objectives set forth. The effectiveness of these 3 surveys will depend on a true sampling of the publics in question. It will depend also on the intelligence with which they are planned, and, more important, on their interpretation from the standpoint of policy, strategy, planning, and timing. It is recommended that from time to time during the year a further check be made of the groups originally questioned. This will indicate to what extent attitude shifts occur regarding important factors on which the bank is dependent. The public. This plan is based on coordinated activities coordinated as to policy, strategy, planning, and timing and aimed at the following publics. 1. General public. 2. Present depositors and borrowers. 3. Potential depositors and borrowers. 4. Present and potential stockholders, the financial public. 5. Present personnel of the bank in relation to all its publics. 6. Group leaders who influence thought and action in all these publics. strategies, policies, planning, and timing. In developing this plan, emphasis has been placed on strategies, policies, planning, and timing. The basic activities of the institution are predicated upon anticipating and reflecting public demand and public opinion. The experience of other banking institutions and of institutions generally which deal with the public indicates that the highest efficiency is attained by the integration of the institution with the demands and desires of all its publics. Sound experience and reason suggest that to reach the highest efficiency, every attitude and action in relation to the public should be predicated on every channel of approaches being permeated by the aims and ideals of the institution. And these aims and ideals should be further coordinated by effective strategy. Liaison Officer Personnel Setup. An officer of the no-name state bank reporting directly to the Executive Vice President shall be charged with the duties of liaison between outside counsel on public relations and those heads of the bank's internal organization whose responsibility it is to deal with the public. This officer should have supervision, direction, and guidance of the planning, strategy, and timing of the following departments and such other departments as may seem necessary. 1. Advertising. 2. Public information and public relations. 3. New business. 4. Research. 5. Library. 6. Economics. 7. Certain phases of personnel department. The officers of 1 to 6 should report to liaison officer, and their policy, strategy, planning, and activities should be coordinated by him. The Council on Public Relations should be kept informed of all angles of impingement of the bank on the public. Working with the bank's liaison officer, the Council on Public Relations will offer counsel, advice, and broad and specific recommendations for coping with situations as they arise. At the same time, the Council on Public Relations should keep closely in touch with outside events, trends, circumstances, and activities affecting the bank. The Council on Public Relations should offer advice on how to anticipate coming events by detecting changed attitudes and actions, and how to deal with such issues as may arise. Subject to previous authorization by the bank's liaison officer, the Council on Public Relations should recommend and plan specific activities and supervise their execution through such means as may be indicated. The Council on Public Relations should himself maintain personal contact with the liaison officer and heads of departments through personal meetings and by letter. Other members of the Council's organization will be delegated to carry on continuous contact. This is suggested so that dissemination of material may be effectively carried on by personal supervision and direction, and so that a continuous personal relationship between the bank and the organization of the Public Relations Council may be maintained. Such a relationship has been found most satisfactory in the case of other clients. Setup of personnel to carry out public relations program. The program must be departmentalized. If this is done, it should function effectively and smoothly in the strategy, planning, and timing laid down after the surveys are completed. 1. Advertising department should carry on its present activities, along a broad program, subject to recommendations by Council on Public Relations in the purchase of space in media, preparation of copy, publication of the house organ, and so forth. 2. Department of Public Information and Public Relations should have 2 letterheads for its 2 divisions, A. Public Information, B. Public Relations. The department should carry on its activities under the supervision and direction of Council on Public Relations and in coordination with the bank's publicity department. 3. New Business Department should carry on as before, with its activities coordinated with those of the broad general program. 4. Research should carry on as at present, coordinating its activities with the general program. 5. Library should carry on as at present, coordinating its activities with the general program. 6. Economics the same as above. 7. Personnel should coordinate certain phases of the department with the broad general program. 8. Liaison officer of the bank should tie all of these departments and functions together, working in cooperation with the organization of the outside Council on Public Relations. The liaison officer should be provided with the necessary assistance to handle all phases of the work outlined above. It has been found sound practice to organize the heads of the departments listed above into a public relations committee. This committee should meet from time to time to express points of view and achieve better coordination. The executive vice president of the bank should function as chairman of this committee. Present bank personnel. Because the no-name state bank is a service organization, activities aimed at its present personnel are among the most important public relations activities. The services rendered by the bank personnel. Effectiveness of that service depends on the extent to which the personnel is imbued with the broad policies and practices for which the bank stands. It is therefore recommended that the bank's personnel be regarded as the public to be cultivated most from the standpoint of building goodwill in business. This activity must not be left to haphazard methods. It must be a carefully, intelligently planned adult education activity. Its aim is to make each person involved as efficient as possible in projecting the aims and ideals of the bank to the widest possible publics. This can be done in a number of ways. Direct, planned activity should bring about the personnel's better understanding of the bank's underlying principles, practices, and policies. This can be done through a direct course of instruction covering both banking and how to be a better public relations leader in banking and in the community. For such activities, an adult educator should be called in. This educator, working in cooperation with the Council on Public Relations, should devise and develop the best way to modify the attitudes and actions of the bank personnel. Such activities should include 1. Letters. 2. Pamphlets and booklets, including a source book of facts and figures, and instruction manuals. 3. Desk presentation folders. 4. Possible visual or motion picture presentation. 5. Indirect approaches from other leaders, outside of bank personnel, directed to the bank personnel. These approaches should emphasize certain important aspects of bank public relations and bank public behavior. Public relations activities aimed at the general public. Obviously, the various arbitrarily named publics overlap. In activities designed to reach any given public, there is bound to be a spillover into the activities designed for other publics. This, however, is an advantage. The activities aimed at the general public will, of course, embrace all of the departmental activities, those of advertising, public information, and public relations, new business, research, library, economics, and personnel. For each of these, there must be policies to regulate that department's activities, policy, planning, and strategy to be followed by that department. Each department will also have its timing coordinated with the activities of other departments. Coordinated timing will make all activities more effective. No plan can embrace every possible contingency that may arise. First, the basics will have to be laid down, then the basics will need to be carried out. Then provision will have to be made for the addition or elimination of ideas and plans as various contingencies require. In advertising for the general public, all kinds of advertising must be considered: newspaper, magazine, trade journals, billboard, radio, television, pamphlet, booklet, direct by mail, and so on. Cooperative advertising should also be explored with a view to developing new channels for bringing the bank's message to the public. It is out of the question, before comprehensive surveys have been made, to say what media should be used and what motives appealed to. But whatever the emphasis may be on, ideas, planning and strategy are essential from the standpoint of a broad unified approach rather than of each isolated activity. Present depositors and borrowers. Activities planned to affect present depositors and borrowers will flow through various channels. Strategy, planning and timing of activities should be geared to what are found to be 1. The favorable elements to stress in the bank's relations with depositors and borrowers. 2. The negative elements to overcome in these relations. 3. The broad ideas and factors to emphasize in order to overcome the attitude of those who are apathetic or on the fence. Potential depositors and borrowers. Potential depositors and borrowers will respond to the many extension activities. Practices and policies to take account of attitudes of potential depositors and borrowers should be developed and carried out to achieve the desired ends. The financial public, present and potential stockholders. Activities aimed at present and potential stockholders might well fall in the following categories. 1. The development of more and better relations with the financial public. This should be done by the Economics Department, subject always to joint approval of the head of that department and the Public Relations Department through contact with leaders of the financial public, who influence public attitude and action. Among these are the heads of great financial institutions, the heads of financial news and other services, the financial editors of newspapers, magazines, and other publications, as well as financial and economic writers and columnists, professors of economics, finance, and banking at leading colleges, universities, and graduate schools. Here the effort should be to build up routine activities to keep these individuals and groups informed about the progress of the bank. Facts and points of view should be supplied on a routine basis. Routine activities may be supplemented with timely overt action. The bank should publish an economic bulletin, preferably a monthly, which would review and analyze economic and banking trends in the region in which the bank operates. 2. By means of special notices included with each dividend mailing, the bank should keep its present stockholders informed on current business conditions, as well as on the bank's policies and development. The notices may be institutional in character, or they may be devoted to new services or other activities of the bank. In addition, present stockholders should be apprised of important developments by special letters and bulletins. Letters of welcome should be sent to all new stockholders, and letters of regret to those who dispose of their holdings. Group leaders who influence the thought and action of all these publics. An important public to take into account in all activities consists of the group leaders throughout the state who influence the thought and action of all the publics. Activities aimed at these group leaders should be focused in the Department of Public Information and Public Relations, functioning under the supervision and direction of the Council on Public Relations. This department should carry on correspondence with group leaders throughout the state, supplying them with facts and points of view so that in time they may become the springboard for affirmative attitudes and actions. Such contacts of the department with group leaders from women's club presidents to newspaper editors will develop a long sound engineering of consent lines and provide a file that will indicate 1. Friends. 2. Negative elements. 3. On the fence elements. The Department of Public Information and Public Relations should also handle the preparation of lectures, speeches, and the like that will present facts and points of view regarding the no-name state bank both on a routine basis and to take care of special situations if, as, and when they arise. A policy board, composed of bank executives, should be established to determine the policy and point of view expressed in speeches, lectures, and the like to be given by bank officers. Speeches and lectures would have to be approved by the policy board before delivery and dissemination. Relationship to government. Careful study must be given to the entire matter of the bank's relationship to federal, state, and local government, to educators and educational institutions, and to organizations of all kinds. Emphasis should be placed upon the close relationship of the bank to those government departments with which the bank carries on activities. Activities directed at maintaining and building insurance values against attack. The interest of the no-name state bank may require overt action directed at modifying attitudes favorably toward the bank, should unfair attacks may be made upon it. This activity may take the form of a strong counteroffensive aimed at 1. Nailing untruths whenever and wherever they crop up. 2. Projecting a broad, affirmative activity of leadership in civic and other public interest activities. As insurance value against unfair attack, affirmative action should be developed by the bank and its officers toward democratic ideals and principles. This can be done by the participation of bank executives in the life of the community and in democratic activities of various kinds. Department of Public Information and Public Relations. From the functional standpoint of organization, contact with the groups listed in this blueprint of action will be maintained under the two divisions. 1. Division of Public Information. 2. Division of Public Relations. These two divisions are to be centralized within the bank under a bank officer assigned to this activity. Letters are to be prepared by the Council on Public Relations for signature by the bank's public relations officer. It should also be the function of this department to handle all inquiries, compliments, and complaints received at the bank from the public. Lecture Bureau. The bank should set up a lecture bureau whose function it shall be to supply 1. Individuals to speak at important occasions. 2. Talks for the bank personnel on certain occasions. This activity should then be broadened within the framework of the program outlined in this blueprint so that the speakers and what they say will be integrated with that program. The Lecture Bureau's activities should be supervised by the Council on Public Relations, subject to approval by the Policy Board. Conventions. Conventions offer a forum for presentation of fact and point of view. The convention program can be coordinated with the activities of the Lecture Bureau. After policy, strategy, and timing have been settled, participation in conventions as part of the broad approach to public relations can be considered. Events. As part of the general plan, appropriate events should be arranged, under the supervision of the Council on Public Relations, that would be in keeping with the dignity of the bank and would further its objectives. These events might include luncheons, dinners, receptions, dedications, and the like. Motion pictures, radio, and television. Motion pictures, radio, and television will be part of this public relations program as the need arises. When, where, and how these three media of communication will be used will be determined by the Policy Committee. Specific decisions and recommendations as to the use of these media cannot be made until the surveys have been completed. Bank premises. Council on Public Relations will advise on bank premise changes, if any are desirable for improving public relations. House organ. On the basis of surveys already made, it is recommended that the supervision and direction of the bank's house organ be placed directly under the Public Information and Public Relations Department. This will make it easier to gear the house organ's editorial emphasis quantitatively and qualitatively into the broad pattern of the public relations approach. Funds now allotted to this activity can be made to yield much greater results from the standpoint of accomplishing the bank's objectives if the following is done. 1. Center editorial supervision and direction in the bank's public relations liaison officer. 2. Regard the house organ as part of the approach toward accomplishing the bank's objectives. Clippings. Newspaper and magazine articles about the no-name state bank and related topics should be collected and pasted in scrapbooks. It shall be the responsibility of one individual to study these clippings frequently with a view to gauging trends and public reactions on matters in which the bank is interested.